What's the homebrew rule that broke your game? Medieval realistic behavior. I asked the DM who the armed men of the Baron were. The guy wanted to disarm us. He'd already disarmed the peasants and artisans right after my knight chaplain had his blade on the guy's throat. Every time you took damage, you rolled a D100 for a permanent, debilitating injury. It wasn't tied to crits or a damage threshold. I took 2 damage and my left arm came off.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
All magic items had charges. To recharge them, you had to travel to a large city, always a pain because we were constantly under attack. Find a vendor. Roll to see if you could find one. See if they had any supplies in stock. Roll again. Buy the materials and wait through downtime to recharge. Meanwhile, the poor fuzzy-wuzzy villagers were getting raided and captured for some sacrificial ritual to summon undead or a demon. Good times. The only homebrew rule I ever introduced was this. If a creature dropped to 0 HP from a critical hit, it was dead outright. No saving throws allowed. I didn't think of it until halfway through a 4-year-long level 1 to 30 campaign in 4th edition. By that point, they could usually resurrect someone if they really needed to, and the group seemed to enjoy it. That said, it did lead to a few situations where someone who maybe shouldn't have died ended up dead as hell. My reasoning was, you can't sneak up on a guy, bash his skull in for 78 damage, and then have him be totally fine to interrogate a few minutes later. No way! His brains are all over the floor, my dude, and you just stepped in them. Nothing especially wild, but a mix of mechanics and lore. First, we were told that magic in this world was viewed very negatively. If you played a caster, you'd be treated like garbage in towns. No trades, no trust, some people wouldn't even talk to you. Then we were told we'd get minimum health every level. No rolling, no hit dice, just 1 HP per level plus con. So let me get this straight, boss. You tell me not to play a caster because everyone hates magic. Then you tell me not to play a martial character because literally anything could one-shot me. What's left? Stealth archer, I guess? My plan was to go Gloomstalker Assassin, the classic chef kiss, mwah. But that campaign never even got off the ground. Probably for the best. None of us were going to live long enough to see it through anyway. It wasn't D&D, but it was still homebrew. The villain we were fighting could cast a spell to blind us, and then cast a darkness-type spell on top of that. The blindness and darkness stacked. So now we're blind from a spell and stuck in magical darkness. Huzzah! The guy running the game was a veteran DM with decades of experience. But that was one of the dumbest things I've ever sat through at a table. Back in 3.5, the DM created a feat that basically removed spell slots. Instead, when you wanted to cast a spell, you had to make a spellcraft check, which is a DC 10 plus the level of the spell. The DC increased by 2 every time you cast a spell from the same school of magic. If you failed, you wasted your action and couldn't cast from that school again until you rested. Having nearly infinite spell slots each day was incredibly broken. I had a DM who just straight up didn't use spell slots like the other guy, then got annoyed when the casters and the Hexadin were outputting higher damage averages than everyone else or solving almost every problem by rapid firing magic. I could have understood if there was some kind of check to save for exhaustion or something, but they adamantly refused to put any restrictions on how many spells could be cast in a single day. My first campaign was with a DM who, to this day, still baffles me. I was playing a wizard, and since I was new to the game, I asked a clarifying question about rolling for a spell attack to see if I hit the target. The DM said something like, "Oh, you don't roll for that. Spells just hit." Now, I may have been a newbie, but even I knew that was wrong. I'd even carefully made sure to include Magic Missile in my spellbook, so I'd always have at least one reliable attack. No, I didn't argue the ruling, conveniently. Not that it mattered much since the campaign sputtered out after 6 or 7 sessions anyway. Our DM ruled that our Eldritch Fighter could replace any attack with a cantrip. At level 5, this meant he could make 2 booming blade attacks per turn. Then the DM ruled that Shadow Blade could take the form of a spear, so the fighter could use the Polearm Master feat for an extra attack as a bonus action. Then, they decided Shadow Blade could be used with cantrips like Booming Blade. Let's just say, oh, it was horribly broken. Even the DM started complaining that we were killing things too fast. I had to resort to spreadsheets and graphs to explain to them just how massive of a damage boost they had given the fighter compared to rules as written. It was, on average, 3 to 5 times the damage he was supposed to be able to deal. That finally made them realize the issue, and we removed those house rules. I had to point out that if we were balancing it for everyone else, our paladin should be able to use free smites on every attack just to keep up with that level of damage. The DM put ghosts into our weapons that gave us boons, the better we followed them. Most of the bonuses were minor, like roleplay advantages or arrows that did bonus elemental damage and came back after being shot. My paladin got the ability to transfer AC into HP and back. For every point of AC I spent, I got 10 max HP. There were rules to keep it balanced, like not being able to go under 10 HP or AC. The DM also rolled a lot of saves. So that meant that bumping up my AC wasn't exactly super useful. But having over 90 HP at level 7 with an AC of 13, that came in very handy. My DM gave us legendary artifacts as part of a world-saving quest. The idea was to collect all 5. Wait, hold on. No, 6. Turns out the 6th was lost to the annals of history, and perform some wondrous feat to save the world. Each crystal was tied to an element or domain of magic, had 20 charges, reset at dawn, and allowed spellcasting with the charges. Level 1 spells cost 2 charges, level 2 spells cost 3, and so on and so forth. They also gave a +2 bonus to a stat based on their element. For example, life or spirit boosted wisdom, fire boosted strength, earth boosted constitution. Even crazier, the crystals maintained concentration for their spells. This got particularly broken on my one-piece cleric, 10 celestial warlock, who had the crystal of life and spirit. Between my bonus action healing and the crystal letting me cast Cure Wounds, Beacon of Hope, and Regeneration, our 3-person party was nearly impossible to keep down. I didn't even need to waste my spells on healing, which freed me up for utility or damage. Plus, since it worked like a ring of regeneration, I often skipped healing myself to keep my allies topped off. Running Beacon of Hope from the crystal and Bless from my warlock made bosses pretty unhappy, not gonna lie. Since the crystal handled its own concentration, Spirit Guardians anyone? I could use Bless or Hex on one turn, phase step into a group of enemies, and let Spirit Guardians microwave them next. In longer battles, I'd throw in Emboldening Bond for good measure. Angels descended, laid the smackdown, and my party cleaned up with boosted attacks and absurd saves thanks to Bond and Bless. Oh, and my crystal came with the shield spell at no cost. Since I started as a cleric, my warlock already had 18 AC, which jumped to 23 with shield. Enemies were stuck between ignoring me because they couldn't hit me, or focusing me because I was bolstering the party and just blasting away. To make things even crazier, the crystals used their respective stat for spellcasting. My life crystal used wisdom, but the fire crystal scaled with strength. When I realized the barbarian had a stronger spell DC than me with his 22 strength, I was floored. He became a better magic nuker than my warlock, dropping Scorching Ray, Wall of Fire, Flame Strike, and even Incendiary Cloud like a pro. Here's a funny little rule that even Matt Mercer messes up sometimes. Forced movement isn't the same as being made to move because of fear or charm effects. Forced movement happens when someone grapples you and moves at half speed or shoves you. At least that's how I've always interpreted it. Let us know how y'all interpret it in the comments below. I gave my Dragonborn monk magical robes that added more ki, boosted their breath weapon dice, and enhanced quickened healing. But the real chaos came from an experimental mechanic that I threw in. A few +1s. Basically, if they used a bonus action from their ki feature, they could spend more ki to do an additional bonus action from that feature. For example, they could spend 1 ki to use Flurry of Blows, then spend 1 more ki to use Patient Defense or Step of the Wind on the same turn. Heck, they could even spend 3 ki to do all 3! The whole idea was to burn resources to do a lot in 1 turn. Now, at one point, they moved over 150 feet in a turn and was still able to attack. Now, I admit it, I worded it poorly on the item card, so it only got used a handful of times because it was pretty confusing. I recently upgraded the item to make it clearer. Once per round, if you use ki for a bonus action, you can use a second bonus action, rather than being OP Goku. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let us know in the comments below what's the most unbalanced homebrew rule a DM ever threw at you. And of course, if you want to help us avoid unbalanced homebrew rules here on MrRipper, you can join our membership program. You get early access to videos and maybe some more goodies later. We love you all. Please be safe, happy, and healthy, and we'll see you next time. Toodaloo.